afternoon. Welcome into the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM, Falcon Media Sports Network, and BG Falcon Media's flagship sports radio talk show, where we take you through everything going on in the world of Bowling Green athletics in the last week and take a look ahead at the coming week as well. From the Falcon Media Sports Network, I'm Holden Ruck, your regular host, joined by a talented cast of sports analysts from the Falcon Media Sports Network. I'll start to my right first, a mainstay on this show at this point, Ben Korak, back in the seat as usual. How you doing, buddy?
Good to be here, Holden. Disappointing day yesterday, good day 2 days ago. But, some NFL's going on, and interested to see how the sports world ends up after today.
Got all the storylines that keep going, don't you?
Uh-huh.
And to my left now, two analysts making their debut on the Zig Zone show today, so I'll start all the way over here. Trey Kennedy, one of our women's basketball beats. Trey, how you doing?
I'm doing really well, and similarly to Ben, another disappointing loss for BGS women's basketball, so can't wait to talk about that. And then similar to that, can't wait to see how the NFL action unfolds, and then tomorrow night, the national championship as well.
Yeah, busy weekend for sure. To be honest, the national championship kind of slipped in my mind. Good shout. Last but certainly not least, we got Andrew Helkowski here making his debut as well. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, man. Thanks for having me. Good day for men's basketball, at least yesterday.
Yeah, a lot to look forward to in that department as well. We've got something new for the first time in this show today from the organization WXUT at the University of Toledo. Dan Allen, one of the broadcasters for this Saturday's Toledo versus Bowling Green men's basketball game, which is going to be at Savage Arena. Their play-by-play commentator is going to join us at the top of the second hour for a conversation about men's basketball, both teams, a scouting report, and previewing that game, as well as talking a little bit about Toledo's season up to now from the perspective of one of their beats. So that'll be a really exciting segment at the top of the hour there. But we are going to go ahead and get right into our hot topic here in Bowling Green, which is absolutely the hockey team after this weekend. A series against Lake Superior State, the second series against them this year after facing them earlier in the 2025 portion of the hockey season. And the Falcons ended up splitting the weekend with the Lakers, taking 3 points on Friday and conceding 3 points on Saturday. And Ben Korak, I'm going to let you break it down a little bit more. Start with Friday for me.
Yeah, a 3-1 victory on Friday. A pretty solid game played through both games, and we can get into the second one in a minute, but it felt like Bowling Green definitely did outplay Lakers. Felt like they were the more talented team the whole time. Friday, they got a goal in the first period, got a goal in the third period as well. Lake State scored in the second to tie it up at 1-1 before BG got the what ended up being the game winner in the third. And then they had an odd play in the first time I had really ever seen it. Tyler Hodson had the puck, was taking a shot at the empty net, and he was pretty much fouled on his way to the empty net, which normally if there was a goaltender in there, it would be a penalty shot or at least a power play. There was no goaltender, so the empty net goal was given to Tyler Hodson without him even having to take a shot on that play, which was very interesting. And another interesting thing from that game, I believe it was the first time since 1978 that the Falcons did not have a single penalty. Not one penalty in the entire game. Definitely the only time this century, but the first time since about 78 that they did not have a single penalty in the game. Didn't play any factor at all. It was very clean gameplay. There wasn't really too much even that you felt that the referees could have called and didn't. They called a very nice weekend, and it was a very clean game played. It was just too bad that they couldn't come out in the second game and bring a little bit of the offense that they had in the first.
Yeah, and I know that the Saturday game, the points that you could have taken and didn't, especially against a team that I think by all rights you could consider to be an inferior team on paper, kind of a disappointing end to the weekend, but I don't want to move to that just yet because I don't want to gloss over just how crazy that Friday game is.
Yeah.
We talked about on our broadcast in pregame and during the game, penalties a significant thing. Lakers, one of the more penalized teams in the CCHA, as I recall. Falcons leading in average heading into the weekend. And, I really thought the power play and penalty kill would be really, really critical and, probably deciding factors in that game. And they turn around, the Lakers commit one all of Friday, and the Falcons commit none. On the weekend, 81, when you go from the second of the Ferris State games through the first Lake State game, and then into the second one, the Falcons went like 82 minutes without a penalty, which is crazy.
Yeah, a crazy long period of time, especially playing the way they do, which is incredibly physical. They like to throw the body around. They play very heavy. So does Lake State. So it was interesting in that first game that there wasn't a penalty for the Falcons. There was only one to Lake State, but that was too many players on the ice. It wasn't anything gameplay-wise besides just a bench minor. And that was served out. Didn't end up being a power play goal. It was 0 for 1 that day. So penalties literally played no factor in that first game against Lake State, which is incredibly surprising, especially in the preview that I wrote and we posted on bgfalconmedia.com. I mentioned how big of a key that was going to be with special teams, penalty kill, and power play for both of these teams. It didn't play any factor in the first. It certainly did in the second. But that first game was a precursor to what was going to happen in the second. Lake State played very well and tight with their goaltender, Rourke Appleby, who gave up 2 total goals. The only real one, I would say, was in the first period, in the first minute. Quinn Emerson beat Appleby. The other one, the game winner, was a minute and a half into the third period. Brett Foe shot the puck with his back to the boards on the left side, and it just kind of squeaked through. I think Appleby was screened a little bit, so it wasn't even they were really battling for the puck, battling for the goal. It was kind of just like a cursory shot in that fell through. You wipe that away. You assume Appleby can make that save. If he did, it's completely different. You might go to overtime. And then that final goal to make it 3-1 was an empty netter. And you compound that where Quinn Emerson's goal in the first period was the only well set up one in the first game. You go into the second game where you didn't score any, and you're talking about having one quality goal on the entire weekend against a team that is not great in the CCHA, has a pretty good defense, but they've allowed 40 goals this season. They've scored 29 themselves, so they're no, that's in conference schedule too, so they're no stranger to allowing goals in, and you pretty much only scored 1. And that's, you don't win games scoring 1 on the weekend. You can't physically.
No, you don't. And I don't think, it's certainly not the results anybody within the Falcons wants coming out of the weekend, but I also don't think that the non-scoring tells the entire story. And so I do want to pull this audio from Coach Williams after the Saturday loss, because I think his comments on what Lake Superior State did summed things up pretty well. So here's Coach Williams on Saturday night post-game.
Yeah, we did a lot of good things. It's hard to win a game if you don't score right off it, and real good credit to them. They played to an identity. What they did was exactly as advertised in the games I watched prior, off it. And, they plug up the middle of the ice. They're big and strong in their zone. They flip pucks out and force you like we talked about last night, and they caught a break on us tonight on that goal. Bit of a fluke, that they scored on Jacob's time. And much like our goal probably last night in the second goal, right? But at the end of the day, we have to, we have to try to find and manufacture different ways then, and you got to, get your head up. It wasn't from a lack of trying, guys. I don't know. Even down to the end, there was minutes at a time we're in their zone, and, they're blocking pucks, we're missing the net. And when you're playing that tight of a game in the inside, it's hard to get pucks from the D to the net. So then you're looking to go short side and look for rebounds, but yeah, that's the way it goes. I'm not going to sit here and say they outplayed us. I don't think that was the fact. They got the goal on us, and that was the difference. And we got to, continue to learn from it. And yeah, that's the way it goes.
Given the setting, the energy in the Slater, the frustrations and kind of tempers that flared as time expired in Saturday's game, a very composed and calm Willie compared to, I feel like, what we've seen on some other occasions from him for sure.
Yeah, it definitely was. It was a testament to how well they played in a vacuum, with how, I wouldn't say happy, that's not the adjective I would use to describe, but he was not frustrated in a way, which I think a lot of people in that arena might have been. And there was a lot of people, I will say, after that second game, a 1-0 loss, a lot of people stayed around. A lot of people stayed for the alma mater. When they finally pulled people off the piles and Lake State skated off the ice and BG collected themselves, skated out to center and did their stick tap thing around the center circle, everybody got up and cheered. There was a lot of fan support, which I think is a testament to how well They were warriors. They ground the whole game. It was their lack of scoring was not due to any lack of effort. They just encountered a system that worked very well against them. And I think Willie, press conference you just heard there, a lighter tone than you would imagine from a game when you went goalless. I think that's a good sign of he was pleased with how they played, although he did still want more, and I think a lot of people did.
Yeah, I mean, I think the right mindset is going on there. You look ahead to the CCHA schedule remaining for them, which we'll get into in a minute here. Willie also made a comment later on in the press conference. He said something to the effect of, the fortunate thing is that, unless we see them in the tournament, we don't have to play these guys again.
True.
And I do think, the tic-tac-toe game of, we beat this team and this team beat another team, so we should also be able to beat that third team. That doesn't really work. The matchups, like every team composition is different. Some teams,
and it's dangerous in a 9-team league too, where
absolutely
anybody can already beat anybody as it is.
Yeah. So I don't think there's any real worry. I think it's just a matter of if you end up as 4, 5, 6, if you end up in that lower half of the tournament, if you end up going on the road in the first round of the Mason Cup tournament, and especially if it doesn't go your way, you might be thinking to yourselves, man, that's going to be the one they'd like to have back, because arguably, talent-wise, maybe coaching-wise, just overall, one of the better opportunities you had to take 6 points in a weekend, and you didn't do it. Now with Bemidji coming up, and then there's Notre Dame series, which isn't CCHA, and then you've got St. Thomas, Augustana, Minnesota State, Michigan Tech to end the season. You've got the rest of the gauntlet, the other 5 teams atop the top 6, the other 5 teams in tournament position right now, if the season were to end, are the remainder of your schedule. Now, obviously, the Lakers could still be in play after the weekend, taking their 3. They're sitting at 20. Bemidji State is only at 25 through an equal number of games played for those teams. So, I mean, certainly not set in stone, but I do think, it doesn't get easier for them going forward. It just gets different for the Falcons.
Yeah,
they've got to still bring their best. Definitely just unfortunate for them not able to take 6 in probably your best remaining chance to do so.
There's 2 things there to unpack as well. 2 series now that you can look back on and say, man, we really should have done more. I think in every other CCHA series of the season, they've done enough to where the only other one I could add onto this is Bemidji State, because they did lose the weekend technically at home, but that was a completely different team that was playing that game than it is now. Northern Michigan, you dropped 4 points. You only took 2 out of 6. That is borderline unforgivable to a team that's last in the CCHA still. I mean, they took 3 of their 5 total points against you that week. 4 of their 5 total points against you that weekend.
Right. A team who, I'll remind again, has overall, in CCHA, they're 1-15, no ties.
Yeah.
Overall, they're 1-23, no ties, and the 1 is Bowling Green. That's pretty inexcusable.
So if you took 6 points like you should have there, you are tied for first place. Now, if you add on to the fact that you only needed 2 goals to win the game yesterday, you would be in first place by 3 points.
You only needed 1 to take a point.
You only needed 1 to be in the lead, but if you did take 2 goals, you won 2-1, you would be a 3-point leader in the CCHA right now. So there's those 2 series to look back on, and they are in the past, and I'm sure once they skate tomorrow morning, they're more or less going to forget about it. And that's how it should be. That's part of the beauty of hockey players, as they're able to flush things so quickly, and I'm sure they're going to do so, but it doesn't bode well for the outlook of the playoffs from us that are analyzing where they're sitting in the standings and who they play the rest of the season, that can look at it, from a more objective point of view than the team can. The other reason I'm nervous, if I were to be labeled as nervous, Willie talked about it a little bit. The Lakers congested the middle of the ice quite a bit, especially in their own zone. The Falcons are going to go to the net front. They want to be within 10 feet of the crease almost at all times. Lake State already did that. They've done it against a lot of teams, but it worked very well against the Falcons. They allowed 1 goal to the Falcons within the 10 feet of the blue paint all weekend. They shut down the Falcon offense completely. BG couldn't solve it. They couldn't solve Appleby, and Appleby stood on his head, but a lot of it was the defenseman that clogged things up. Are you not going to see that against Bemidji? I mean, they're going to go into scouts this week and see that's what happened to Bowling Green. Why would they not clog the same? Why would Notre Dame and St. Thomas and Augustana and Minnesota State and Michigan Tech not do the exact same thing that Lake State did? So there's adjustments that need to be made. You got to go into this week. You still got to work on your identity, which is going to the net front, and some goaltenders aren't going to be able to handle it as well as Appleby did. But you can't go into the rest of the season expecting not to see a game that's going to be played like Lake State, because if you want to beat the Falcons, that's the proven way to do it.
Yeah, you've got the
really
blueprint
the only one
right there. Any team, all of those top ones that we just mentioned with the Falcons on their schedule, you've seen a blueprint now for how to hold them back offensively. We're going to talk about defense in a minute, too, because there's going to be some question marks, at least for this next series here, too. But, you look back at their schedule. Lake Superior State on Saturday held them scoreless. Only one other time this season, as we mentioned on the broadcast, the Niagara game to open their regular season play, an 0-2 loss there. Outside of that, the only time they've been held under 2 goals was a tie 1-1 with a shootout win against Minnesota State. So not only are you scoreless, you haven't even been held to 1 before, and suddenly Lake Superior State's kind of flipped you on your head a little bit. I don't think, again, we talked about Willie's press conference. I don't feel like they've lost their identity or confidence in, how to do, how to execute their system.
No.
But, things get a lot hairier from the side of your opponents. They've seen a really, really good way for, a good team, but not, a superior team, no pun intended there, to stifle you offensively.
Yeah, I think Lake State is not as talented as Bowling Green is. For my money, Bowling Green's the top 3 most talented team in the CCHA. They just played, and Willie said it at his press conference, that wasn't in the clip. They just played to their identity. They played to what they wanted to play better than Bowling Green did. And Bowling Green did the right things, but there was, the amount of pucks that went from corner to corner without anybody in the slot to grab them was, I'd need all my fingers, all my toes, and maybe some extra limbs to count them. There was a ton. So there's definitely things to clean up. And while it wasn't bad, and while you did lead in shots on goal, you led in faceoffs, you dominated gameplay, you dominated possession over the Lakers all weekend, they found the one goal that they needed to take 3 points. And now you're in a situation where trying to get that first seed and trying to be able to host everything you're doing right now is, you can win the regular season title. That's great, but you're trying to host for the Mason Cup tournament, which is coming up quicker than anybody would imagine. So that's the goal right now, and you're 6 points back with about 7 points left on the table, pretty poorly over 2 bottom teams in the CCHA.
Yeah, I think maybe not a silver lining, but just another factor at play that I think is interesting here. The team seated ahead of and behind Bowling Green right now in the CCHA. Michigan Tech, 34 points, has them in 3rd. Minnesota State's 28 has them in 5th. They played this weekend, leading to that placement result because Michigan Tech got an upset sweep of the weekend against Minnesota State. I didn't see that coming. I won't pretend to be the foremost Michigan Tech Huskies expert in the state of Ohio. However,
they played fantastic.
Really impressive weekend from them. Minnesota State is still one that's going to be scary, even though you were able to split with them, compete with them. But yeah, just a gauntlet down the rest of this stretch. Going into Bemidji, what are you looking at? Because there's the biggest thing I'm looking at that I hadn't touched on yet is defense. I think you've got question marks about, and probably doubtful marks by Gustav Stierenberg, based on the ending of the game, and you're facing captain and defenseman Dalton Norris exiting with a big-time injury.
Yeah, to me, now this is all... I don't know how long Dalton Norris is going to be out for. I don't know if Stierenberg is going to get anything from the league. Based on what I saw at the end of the game, he definitely the most animated on the ice. He was chirping a bit with what I am assuming are Lake Superior State fans over the boards in the Lake State bench. He was chirping with them with his bucket off over the bench. I am assuming very highly that that's a big no-no for the CCHA, and I'm assuming there's probably going to be a penalty given to him. I They haven't announced anything yet. I don't know if there will be. Falcons better hope not, because the loss of Dalton Norris, who's your captain, and then the loss of Gustav Stjernberg, who brings a dynamic to the ice that nobody else on the team really does, and is an alternate captain. I mean, that's huge. That's a huge loss. I mean, you played the Northern Michigan series without Stjernberg and Jackson Niedermeyer, and both of them very important defensemen, and you had a poor weekend against Northern Michigan. So what are you going to do against Bemidji, who's only 5 points behind you? They're competing for home playoff. They have more to play for than maybe Northern Michigan did at the time, although they were still searching for their first win. That's maybe the biggest piece, the biggest storyline going into this weekend is Norris is, in my opinion, definitely going to be out this coming week based on what I saw. Maybe long term, hopefully not for the season, because he's a huge piece.
I would be shocked after just watching how he went off the ice. I would be shocked to see him play this weekend.
I would be surprised if he plays again in the regular season.
Do you know what his injury is?
No, they haven't announced it yet. I'm hoping head coach Dennis Williams will have a update for us at the press conference Tuesday, which will be posted on BG Falcon Media YouTube channel. I'm hoping it's not too major, but based on what it was, his foot got tangled up pretty bad. And I think I did see him with a boot, but it might have been somebody else. I don't know. That's just what I saw. So yeah, that would be a really, really tough loss for this team. And I will, last year Minnesota State, Ethan Scardino, when he was on the ice, I think it was contact to the head. He put a hit on somebody from Minnesota State, Campbell Psychos maybe. Doesn't really matter. He was suspended a full game for a hit that happened in the game and gameplay.
Yeah.
So what are they going to do? What are they going to get Goose for a conduct play after the horn sounded? Mm-hmm. If you do want to have a laugh, go look at the penalties at the end of the last game that the Falcons played. Because I think every single player on the ice got at least one penalty. Most of them game misconducts in 10 minutes. Yeah, I have it up right here. Stjernberg, Ryman, Emerson, Hodson, Higgins, and Grant all game misconducts after the whistle. Connor Milburn, Johnny Druskinis, William Ulrich misconducts after the whistle. Rourke Appleby left the crease because it was all happening in his own end. He got 2 minutes for leaving the crease during an altercation. That was just a minor. Mike Brown got a major for cross-checking. Hadley Hudak got a game misconduct, 10-minute major. And then Stjernberg got another penalty for face masking. That was a 5-minute. So after the whistle, Gustav Stjernberg took 20 minutes of penalty.
Yeah, I mean 3 total penalties. Yeah,
and then Mike Brown also got a game misconduct on top of his 5 minutes for cross-checking. So he got 20 minutes of penalty as well. So that's just just looking at the penalty summary, all of them after the 20-minute mark in the third period, it is comical.
Yeah,
kind of to
funny.
see.
It's like the whole team pretty much.
But I don't. There might be suspensions to Lake Superior State too, depending. I mean, there's a lot of video to go through for the league. They might hand out suspensions. They might not. I'm leaning toward they will.
CCHA definitely earning their checks.
They can't really let this slide, because if they do, it's going to happen again.
Do you think it's going to have a big factor against the Beavers this upcoming Friday or no?
Yeah. I mean, if you're missing 2 of your better defensemen, yeah,
especially
and 2 of your leaders, 2 of your bigger leaders.
I think the important thing too, or I mean, not the only important thing. I think it's a bad time to lose those 2 defensemen, regardless, are critical to this team. But in particular, in the face of the woes we saw offensively, I know that you won 3-1 on Friday, but that wasn't an offensive clinic. You had the Quinn Emerson.
There was more
early,
in the tank,
which was legit, but also just kind of a hot start early, and then the Brett Foe one was kind of like, okay. I mean, he even hit the shrug after, not sure how I, netted that one in, but sure. And then the last one, the extra skater, no goalie, the awarded goal.
Yeah.
I mean, you scored one real goal all weekend, arguably.
True. Overall on the team, too, you have injuries to Adams Linka, who's not been in the lineup for a while. You have an injury to Noah Morneau. He was hurt against Ferris State. That's a first-line center. He's a very impactful player on this team. You would miss Dalton Norris to injury, I'm assuming, for both games this weekend, unless a miracle happens. And then if you get Stjernberg injured, that's another player, a very impactful defenseman. Suspended, yeah. And you could be skating into Bemidji State with 2 freshman defensemen, Breck McKinley, Ivan Korodiak, and Jackson Niedermeyer, who started the season as a forward and is now playing as a defenseman. So, I mean, it doesn't look great. Especially if Stjernberg is able to play, if he plays both games, completely different story. There's so much that he impacts that I think it completely changes with him on the ice. But we're gonna have to see. We'll have to see. You can only hope at this point. The Falcons have to hope that there's nothing coming from the league to their players, and they got to make sure everybody that's not injured is available for the 2 games this weekend that are huge ones.
And in particular, especially if guys aren't available, I mean, you still got to lean into that next man up. Talking about Dalton Norris's injury, despite the uncertainty at the time that he gave the press conference. Willie mentioned there's more guys. They still got to lean on the rest of the guys.
Well, somebody's got to step up.
But yeah, they're going to have to step up, because it's like, you look at the offensive woes you're having. That's okay if you have a defense that's only going to allow 1 goal all weekend.
Yeah.
But I mean, you can't necessarily rely on that when you're losing.
Yeah.
Potentially captain, assistant captain, and I mean 2 of your best players. Goose in particular, again, the physicality and just like tone setting that he brings is very, very unique. I mean, he's a very special player.
I mean, you have to skate gingerly
in that role
when he's on the ice. Yeah, you have to be worried about what's going on, because he'll waste you in an instant. So, and that's a valuable asset to have. It's a needed asset for sure.
And I think the silver lining is, the season isn't decided by this Bemidji State series, but you certainly don't want to concede any more opposing points, especially to a team that's, 1 weekend worth of points within, margin of you, Lake Superior State, and they're, the weekend, far down still. They're still 10 back from Bowling Green, and they'd be the only team that could like push them out of tournament. But I think now, home ice is still in play. But I think you got to be as preoccupied with just not slipping up. You know what I mean? I'm not saying I expect Lake Superior State to make a run, but even Willie said in his press conference, we're not like going into this expecting to completely run the table here. Yeah. So.
And while we can worry about who BG plays, and we can worry about what they need to do to advance in the standings, when they go to practice and when they take the ice, they're not worried about that. They just got to go out and play like it's Lake Superior State every week. So it doesn't necessarily matter to them. It's just looking at this, and it's more so painful for a fan looking at the points that were on the table against 2 of the 3 bottom teams. And if you handled business like you very easily could have, and not to say there was circumstances that hurt you, and not to say that you would have taken all of them, but had you taken even some, you'd be in first place right now. So that you got a long road ahead, and it starts with Bemidji, who has been a very tough customer for the Falcons in the last year and a half, 2 years.
In particular this season, I mean,
they have not been easy.
Arguably the worst outcome. Well, I think like numbers-wise, the worst outcome this season in the CCHA series, right?
I believe so. Yes,
I don't think there's another series that they outright lost.
They've at least split every other series besides Bemidji State, right, and that was the second one of the year. Bemidji State at the time, very hot. They were atop the CCHA. They've fallen off. Their team is a lot different, and not in a good way, in my opinion. So at least the Falcons have that helping them a little bit. But they did overtime loss in the second game and a shootout loss in the first game. They haven't beat them since January 10th of 2025. That was in Bowling Green, and that was an overtime win. It's been a 1-score game every game of the last 6 that they've played in the last year and a half. Yeah. So, I mean, if you're a betting man, bet that it goes to overtime, because it has 6 times in a row.
Yeah, I'm inclined. My gut looking at this series, I wouldn't be surprised if Bowling Green loses this series too. I also wouldn't be surprised if the teams split. I don't expect Bowling Green to take more points than Bemidji personally. We do need more information, but it's my if my assumptions with injury and potential suspension are accurate, I'm thinking it's probably like a split or like a take a point type weekend. I don't think they're going to go pointless, but I don't.
No, you can't go pointless. You at least have to split.
I mean, I think as much as we're talking about, like the freshman lines that have to step up, I mean, I think these guys are good enough. I think there's enough talent. It's kind of just a matter of stepping up. And I mean, you can't make those freshman mistakes.
You can't say that anybody's played poorly, and you can't say that the team's played poorly. It's just some unfortunate luck has gone against you.
For the Falcons to have a successful series this weekend, what are your keys, Ben, for the Falcons on the rink?
You just have to score. I mean, they've averaged 2 to 4 goals against Bemidji the last 6. I think the biggest look at this series is going to be in those last 6 games, because the teams have been very neck and neck, and Bemidji's edged them out 5 of the 6 times, and BG's got the 1 win. They've taken points in all but one of the games of the last 6, so that's going for them too. You just have to play to your identity better than they do to theirs. I mean, every sport kind of boils down to them, but it's mainly just getting the puck to the right in front of the crease. If they're not able to do that, they're going to be in rough shape, because they weren't able to do that effectively this weekend, and they lost a game that they probably shouldn't have. So that's what I would say, at least offensively. Defensively, you got to have somebody step up, because you could be out 2 defensemen. Even if you're out 1, somebody's going to have to step up into a role, and if you're out 2, you might be in a decent amount of trouble. We'll have to see. In the next couple of days, we'll know.
Yeah,
they're not going to wait till a day before the game and say, "Oh, by the way, Goose can't play."
Yeah,
and we're talking about Goose too, but we don't know what went on. We haven't seen the replays of it. We don't know if anybody did anything egregious. If there's going to be suspensions to anyone else on the team, forwards. Yeah. The only thing I can't say, it won't be a goalie for BG. Which has been a very strong suit, so that's good. But
yeah, definitely a significant and consistent bright spot. Both Jacob Steinman on Saturday and Cole Moore on Friday, playing as well as any goalies have played this season, in my opinion, for the Falcons. I mean, you look at, again, 1 goal out each night. The one on if Saturday, kind of a fluker.
If you combine them into one player, I would argue over the weekend that they played just as well as Rourke Appleby did. And Appleby is going to be the goaltender of the week this week, because he had 35 saves and a shutout on the second night and only gave up 2 on the first night. Yeah. So he gave up 2 overall. BG gave up 2 overall. He might have made more saves, but the goaltenders all played equally as well, I'd say. It all came down to the skaters, and Lake State skaters did their stuff better than BG did theirs. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, I mean, I think what you're saying is that on too. The offensive production. I mean, how many passes do we watch just zip in right in front of the crease, and
just so many.
Whichever skaters there just can't corral it. It goes
so
behind. They play it off the wall. They clears it out. I mean,
and that's just good scouting. It's good coaching to understand that BG gets the puck there. I mean, it seems basic, but you got to stop their. I mean, they've scored most of their goals this season from right in front of the crease. Yeah. So if you clog up the crease, you don't allow pucks to get through. You got a goaltender that's going to stand tall in there, and it's a recipe for success against BG. And they're going to have to break that this coming weekend, because I'd be willing to bet that Bemidji's going to come out and try and do the same thing. They're going to pinch their defensemen in toward the crease, and they're going to shut everything right in front of the net down.
And not only that, but Friday's press conference, I don't remember if it was Breck McKinley or Quinn Emerson, but one of them mentioned that their scouting, on Rourke Appleby was, in particular, the easiest way to make him struggle is, creating that traffic in front of the crease. And, I mean, Lake State counteracted that, as well as anybody could. So, I mean,
any goalie, you're looking through trees, it's really tough to see the puck coming at 90 miles an hour towards you. So, traffic is also a big thing, which they didn't get too much. It's tough to get traffic when you're being cleared out the second you can get in there. So they're gonna find a way. They made adjustments this year. They've done it on a night to night basis. They can do it on a week to week basis. They'll be prepared for what Bemidji State's going to bring. Just is going to depend on the crew that they're going to put out there and what Bemidji State adjustments are.
Yeah. You have anything else to add? I feel like that pretty much sums it up well. No. The Falcons will be back in action this weekend, Friday and Saturday, in Bemidji, Minnesota. There'll be an 8:07 p.m. and 7:07 p.m. tip-off. Those are Central Time.
Tip-off.
Or puck drop.
Tip-off.
I'm getting ahead of myself.
Yeah.
Thanks for keeping me honest, Ben. But our
I'm
very
doing
own
my
Ben
best.
Korak, right? What'd you say?
I'm doing my best.
Doing your best?
I'm doing my best.
Ben Korak right there will be making the...
By the way, are you guys hip to the weather this weekend here?
I'm hip to the weather this week here. I do know it's going to continue to be some single digits. Somebody told me rumblings of
cold and miserable.
Wind chill and negatives.
Friday is 20, low of -1.
Fantastic.
Saturday is 2, a low of -10.
Jeez,
Now
man.
let me.
with Bemidji? You're
Yeah,
kinda-
this is gonna get you. I don't know if it's changed in the last couple hours because I looked at this morning and makes me want to cry.
I bet it
High-
does, man.
Freeze, man.
Friday.
Can't be wasting water like that.
High of -16.
Oh,
Low,
my God.
a low of -27, and then Saturday it's going to get warmer as the day goes on, but it's going to be -4 during the day,
Nice and
negative
toasty.
29, and then when I'm leaving Sunday morning, 7 during the day. So it's going to get warmer technically, -16, -4, and then 7, but
If you
in the
want-
negatives most of the time. And I think the chart goes at that. I think it's 5 minutes is the frostbite time for -5. So if you're out in -5 degree weather, completely like uncovered is, it's not like you're going to be covered up. But if you're outside for 5 minutes, you're going to have frostbite guaranteed.
If you
Yikes.
want to support Ben Korak in his fight to combat frostbite, you can open bgfalconmedia.com, scroll down and select donate to BG Falcon Media to help protect Ben.
Maybe
from
they'll buy
elements.
me a hat. Maybe
Or just,
Carl will
like,
get me a
His
hat.
journey up to Bemidji.
They could buy you some hand warmers, dude.
Yeah.
Regardless, Ben
I will.
Korak will have that call of both of those. It'll be 8:07 and 7:07 Eastern Time. Friday and Saturday night here on WBGU 88.1 FM. And as always, you can check out bgfalconmedia.com to keep up with the recaps, highlights, and much, much more, as well as BG Falcon Media on YouTube, and as well as BG_FMSN on Twitter X, and BG Falcon Media on your other social media platforms, wherever you get your sports, Bowling Green sports in particular, related news. It's going to wrap up our hockey segment for today, and we're going to move on and put Trey in the, not the hot seat, but the main seat now, because we're going to talk about women's basketball a little bit. Women's basketball coming into, well, I guess today's show didn't end off with quite the result they'd want. Not a bad showing at all Wednesday in their win
One of
over
their
Western
best,
Michigan.
to be honest.
But then just an unfortunate close loss, 51-49 against Miami. Trey, take me through the Western Michigan game first, if you would.
Yeah, I mean, Bowling Green really struggled in the first quarter, and turnovers were an issue, which has been a common theme for the past 2 games, really, especially against Miami. We'll get to that later. But Bowling Green really had a strong third quarter against Western Michigan, shooting 70% from the floor, and that was amazing. Lauren Gherkin had an amazing showing, one of her best performances of the season. 4 of 9 from the field. All of those 4 attempts were three-pointers. 15 points for Lauren Gherkin. Three-pointers have been a struggle for her all season, but as of late, she's really had a great showing, and she's been catching fire on the offensive end. And so with that in mind, that third quarter was really awesome for Bowling Green against Western Michigan on Wednesday, and the three-point efficiency has continued to this point.
Yeah, and the three-point efficiency, too. I think there's been plenty of times, in particular when they've gone to those crucial tournament games in Fred Schmeel's tenure so far. Sometimes this team falls back into high-volume, low-efficiency shooting. So I think anytime there's a game with a good amount of efficiency, it's a valuable building block for this team, because that's an area that, I mean, we've seen them, especially in just the time I've watched them, we've certainly seen them struggle plenty.
Yeah, in the last 3 games, it looks like they went from being like hovering around 300 for most of the season. They were at 063 against Central Michigan, and then something was a fire was lit for them, because 36%, 37%, and then 41 against Miami. That's as a team, so it's going to be maybe a bit skewed to certain players that are taking more or less, but definitely a better ratio. I think the last couple, it has been nice to see just more true shooting from all around, not necessarily just from 3, but
Paige Kohler's
better
still not
offense.
like in her form on the offensive side. She's still in a shooting slump, but I'm
especially
confident.
yesterday, I think.
I'm confident she'll get out of that sooner than later. But as a team, I like what I'm seeing. Coming into the Miami, we'll get into that a little bit. Miami was second in the MAC entering yesterday in three-point percentage, and Bowling Green shot 41% from 3, while Miami shot 30% from 3. So outshooting Miami, who's been really great all season. Really awesome news for the Falcons.
Yeah, and I mean, Miami not only second in the MAC in that percentage, also just currently second in the MAC.
Mm-hmm.
It's even pace with Ball State right now, both 6-0 in MAC play, 14-4 overall. So, I mean, not a bad loss to take. I think the biggest gripe just kind of the ending of that game, how close it was and losing in that fashion. You were there. Take me through that a little bit, Trey.
Well, Bowling Green was up 8-0 early in the first period. And midway through, after the media timeout, Miami of Ohio went on a run. They went on a 10-0 run and ended the first quarter up 10-8. And after that, Bowling Green really dominated, I'd say. They led for 34 minutes in yesterday's game, while the Redhawks only 2 minutes and 22 seconds. So Bowling Green had that game at their hands and at their disposal, but the problem was the turnovers, having 28 turnovers compared to Miami's 26, which proved costly, especially when Miami is scoring 32 points off of those turnovers and Bowling Green 15 off of Miami's turnovers. So when you're getting those turnovers, Bowling Green's got to do a better job at possessing the ball and connecting on those miscues from their opponents.
Yeah, and not just turnovers, but significant turnovers from your key players who, you're relying on to take care of the ball. Lauren Gherkin's been very solid lately, as you mentioned. She had 3 of her own. Paige Kohler had 5. Janaea Donahue had 6. Kyle Woods had 4. She's been a big step-up player, too.
Concerning part to me was the turnovers from Paige Kohler toward the end. I think on the second to last possession of the game that you had against a top team, Paige Kohler has been your consistent point guard. She was off the floor for one of those possessions because I think she had a couple of turnovers in a row and she had been pulled off the floor, which, that's your point guard, and you can attribute that to just, a bad game. She had a bad spell of luck there. But that's not necessarily a great sign that's, supposed to be one of your top 2 players, top 3 players, if not your best. That's definitely supposed to be the best ball handler you have. And see, I was confused for a second. I had to do a double take and a rewind when I was watching it on ESPN Plus to see, wait, is she actually not,
Well, I talked to her post-game on her post-game press conference, and she put that game on herself. Obviously, the turnovers not being to her standards, and it's something that I'm assuming she's going to get fixed. She's one of the best players on the team. If Bowling Green's going to have success down the stretch, they're going to need her to be at her all-time best. But Janaea Donahue also had 5 last game against Western Michigan. So Bowling Green's 2 best players arguably struggling in that department. So they've got to get that figured out for them to improve. And it's the thing that is the one issue. Bowling Green hasn't turned the ball over as much in the past season. And so if they're going to have that success down the stretch against Ohio coming up, who's a surprising team here in the MAC, it's got to improve at that point.
Yeah, you look across the board at other things. It's a 2-point loss. You rebounded fine. Rebounds were not really the reason you lost. Even on the offensive rebounds, you had more defensive rebounds than Miami did. But I think you're dead on. I think you look at your 2 key players. I don't think it's very controversial to say that Paige Kohler and Janaea Donahue were, from preseason to now, the expected and the 2 top players on the team. And you can't have a combined 11 turnovers from them. You have one less from them. That's probably the difference in a 2-point game.
More so probably. Yeah, the most frustrating part about that was that it felt like for most of the game they maybe should have and definitely could win. I at
least thought they were going to win late in that game.
Yeah, there could have been that hope. I tried to stay pretty neutral on it until the end, and it was seconds left, and they needed a bucket. That last play, I didn't really like that much, whether they drew it up that way or not. But that's beside the point. I just, it felt like they were going to take a top win, which is something that last week when we were talking on the same show, we were asking of both teams. To be able to, to have real hope in this team and doing damage in the MAC tournament, you're like, okay, you got to beat one of the big dogs.
Well,
which Miami is definitely one of them. That would have put you at 4-2 and one of the top spots, definitely in the Mid-American Conference tournament at the end of the season. Would have poised you for it. So that would have been a really big one, and they definitely could have done it. And like the hockey team, I guess it just didn't fall their way, but. There was definitely things to adjust during that game.
And it's frustrating, too, because if it's a game where Miami blows out Bowling Green, by 15, 20, you're maybe having a different conversation of they're not on that level yet, and that's frustrating. But at some point, when you continually play in close games, you got to get over the hump. And we just haven't seen them do that.
The encouraging thing in my eyes, I'm seeing improvement, like I'm saying, on the offensive side. They've got opportunities coming up against Ohio. Like I said, they got them on Wednesday. And then UMass, who are leading Bowling Green in the MAC, and Massachusetts at 3, Ohio at 4. These are two crucial games for Bowling Green to potentially grab. And if you can get 2 ideally coming up, that would be awesome going forward.
Who do you think has improved the most, and who do you expect to continue to improving this season to put together some wins and make some noise in the MAC?
Well, surprising, I said Ohio, because coming in, they weren't given as high of a draw. Kent State was a preseason favorite, and they've struggled. So I got to assume that they're going to catch ground and they're going to get hot. They're at 3-4 in the conference, below Bowling Green. Bowling Green getting that win a couple weeks ago. So there's just a ton of parity right now in the MAC, which is what you want in a season where a lot of uncertainty at this point. So Bowling Green's got to take care of business against Ohio. If they can get that win, catch some fire. Massachusetts coming up as well. I think Bowling Green's going to put themselves in a spot. They just ultimately got to put together a win against these top teams in the MAC.
Yeah, it feels like certainly something's going to give soon. I mean, because there's a number of things you could fix. You know, you look at, we mentioned the turnovers. You know, Paige Kohler wasn't particularly efficient in the Miami game either. You know, she makes, maybe 2 more of her attempts. And, I mean, that's about the difference in margin, too. Again, obviously, the game plays out differently when, change one thing. But, I mean, again, 51-49 and leading for as long as Bowling Green did. I mean, that's, about as close of a game as you can play. One
concerning thing, Taya Ellis has dealt with injuries this season. The past 2 games, both against Miami and against Western Michigan, she's had a non-factor, 2 points in 20 minutes of play last night. She's great on the defensive side. She had 6 rebounds last night to top her 2 points. But if Bowling Green's going to have a dynamic offense, they got to get her going down low, spread the floor, open up the paint and the corners for open shots. And so if they can get her going and healthy, on top of that, look at Kendall Moxie, who's had a decent kind of week or so stretch. If they can get those 2 bigs rolling, I think it's going to help this team much more going forward.
Yeah, I think the biggest maybe disappointment out of that, aside from just taking a loss, a game that felt like you could win, Jaden Cook came in for 3 minutes. She's 6'3", pretty much a center. She came in for 3 minutes, got a bucket, made a free throw, and then left the floor and didn't come back in. And I was a little bit, I didn't see why she didn't see the floor again, especially with Taya Ellis struggling a little bit, try different bodies. And toward the end of the game, maybe you want to put your season long, the person that's been better. But I would have liked to see a little bit more of her, especially trying to expand the depth of your bigs, because I mean the last 5 games played, 2 minutes, 8 minutes, 2 minutes, 4 minutes, 3 minutes for. I think Jaden Cook's the biggest player on the team. I don't think her and Kendall Moxie.
I don't think she has Shamil's trust with a lot of the turnovers that she commits during the season. Expectations were for her to have a massive impact, but it just hasn't been that way because of her lack of offensive security with the ball in her hands, and then that's dumbfounded decisions at times on the offensive floor.
That is fair. It's just you don't build that trust by playing somebody 3 minutes a game. Would be my argument. And I get that it's tight, and I get that you're trying to take a win, and you play the player that is going to have your trust. So I understand that, but it would have been nice to. I mean, she's got an 18-point game. Like she might be able to pull something out, and you never gave her a chance. That would have been a nice thing to see. I'm hoping over the next couple of games that they do see more of that, because I think they are missing. Last year Erica Porter had her problems, but I think they are missing maybe an Erica Porter from last year that can just go in there and work the paint quite a bit, and that, it feels like Jaden Cook could be that. If like Trey said, she is able to. If Shamil is able to trust her more and put her in big situations.
And not only that, but I mean, you're not adding more games. The season only gets smaller. The time to work out these kinks is sooner than later. And I mean, if defense is the contribution, fine, but 5 defensive rebounds, 1 offensive rebound, and a single bucket is all you got out of Taya Ellis
in 20 minutes of play.
I mean, I'm not saying that she was making huge, costly mistakes all game. But the contribution doesn't feel there to the point where you can't try something new. And I mean, in fairness, she also had 2 turnovers of her own, which doesn't completely negate her contribution. But you got as many turnovers as points isn't awesome.
Sure.
And not like a commanding number of the team's rebounds. I mean, you co-led the team with Nate Donahue. But I mean, I don't see the impact there that doesn't open up the possibility of, okay, I'm with Ben. I was listening to it and I was like, I don't know.
Yeah. And an unfortunate game too for Kendall Moxley that had a couple of good games in a row. Now back-to-back games has played 15 minutes, 4 points against Western, 2 points against Miami. Not too much of a factor herself either, and that's two bigs. I don't know what you were actually in the building. You saw what was going on, Trey, but I mean it felt like you had maybe got something in Kendall Moxley for 2 games, and then in pretty sizable minutes you got 6 points in the last 2.
To start the season, she has had minimal impact, but once Taya Ellis got injured, Jaden Cook obviously had her chance and opportunities to make an impact on this team, both on offense and defense, and she hasn't done that. So Kendall Moxley taking that position, being ready, having 1 or 2 games, having that chance, she did shine. That's why I am comfortable with her in the lineup, because I'm confident she can go out there, provide spacing, and then rebound those basketballs, get those offensive and defensive rebounds, hopefully getting up those 2-point shots.
Yeah, I have no problem with her playing size. I think 17 minutes is a pretty good number for her. I do think Ellis is definitely the better. But, the 2 games in a row now, back maybe down to earth a little bit. So, I mean, there's got to be a third to work in there. Or a second with Taya Ellis. They need somebody on the larger side to work in there in the paint, because they have a pretty small lineup in the top 4 with Kaya Woods and Paige Kohler. Jenny Donahue can, but I mean that's a tough go for her, who has to handle the ball a lot.
Also, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Also, when you have obviously Donahue, Kohler, both guards, when they're going up against a player like Elsa DeVries, who's a forward,
Also very true.
She can play well. She shoots the 3 well, and a lot of times last night gave Bowling Green fits, converting 3-point shots out of 7. So Bowling Green's going to need those 2 players, Ellis and Moxie, if available, even Cook perhaps, to kind of provide that defensive effort against those players that can shoot deep shots but also be physical down low in the paint.
Yeah, for reference, just because Ben mentioned it and I was thinking about it, Moxie also listed at the same 6'3" as Cook. So, I mean, those are your 2
biggest
options right there.
Yeah, biggest players that you have on the team.
Yeah. Looking ahead to the schedule, what do you want to see different, Trey, as we wrap up women's here, in the Ohio UMass games? Just efficiency, or I mean, is there a specific key you think to them taking points in one or both of those?
Well, Paige Kohler,
win, I should say.
Paige Kohler's got to find her rhythm going. She leads the team in points scored per game. Donahue as well. Donahue didn't really have much of a factor at all in the first half yesterday. Finally got going in the second half, finishing with 10 points. Those 2 players in particular have to find themselves going, especially when you have Lauren Gherkin on a hot streak right now, shooting the ball. And if they have those 3 players also having Kaya Woods, who's, I like to call her an Energizer Bunny, because she's physical, she's fast, elusive down the floor.
Down court,
those 3-4 players have to be huge, improve huge. They got to find those turnovers, minimize them, but also kind of get that going on the defensive side. Janaea Donahue's perfect at that, provides a ton of defensive effort, and her turnovers that she kind of gets to her opponents are going to be huge. So if they can force those against Ohio, against UMass, it's going to help them not only, but down the stretch.
Also a nationally televised game against UMass up in Amherst.
Exciting.
It's going to be exciting this coming Sunday.
That'll be a big one. We'll be
it's big for the program too.
Yeah, CBS Sports Network. That's always good when you can get
a game
any of our sports
television.
on national. It's really cool.
Get it to the most eyes possible.
Yeah. We'll have a broadcast for both of those as always. It looks like Falcon Radio for both of those games, although WBG is normally the home. Athletics says Falcon Radio right now, so we'll have to fact check that. But regardless, you can find both of those streams on bgfalconmedia.com.
I believe it'll be here, both. And the Athletics webpage is wrong.
I think, yeah.
Because there's no hockey, and that's the only other thing that could bump it. So, yeah. I'm sure there'll be WBG.
Regardless. Who among you is on those ones, Trey?
Well, Dan Ridenour and Adam Duffin will be calling the game on Wednesday against Ohio. And then I'm pretty sure Lucas Kleinmeyer will be having the call on Saturday, or when they play
Sunday at UMass.
UMass,
He's
yes.
making the trip.
4 p.m. regardless, as always, you can tune in here, WBGU 88.1 FM for those broadcasts. You can check it out as well on bgfalconmedia.com and BG Falcon Media on YouTube at BG_FMSN on Twitter X and BG Falcon Media wherever else you get your info on social media. Enough there for you, Ben?
Big read there, kid.
Big read there, yeah.
Attaboy. A lot of words.
A lot of words, man.
Learn from the best. We're going to move on here. As we're closing out this hour, we've only got about 5 minutes left. We're going to take this time just to recap what has happened with the men's basketball team recently, because we've got our call-in guest from WXUT, Dan Allen, joining us at the top of the hour. So in the past week, since Bowling Green... or since we last had this show, I should say, Bowling Green played yesterday a win at Stroh Center against Eastern Michigan, an 85-79 margin, and I think by all rights, kind of a much-needed win for this team, coming off of the strong performance they had against UMass, where they kind of squeaked it out, but I mean a 101 to 100 overtime win where Javonte Campbell exploded for the most road points in program history. A couple of losses against, albeit great teams and coaches in the MAC, but teams that I think, you competed with, could have won, in particular the 93-96 result against Kent. Just, really, really close against a really great team. And kind of a similar story, I think Ben alluded to this. We've talked last week on this show about, both teams kind of wanting to see a signature win for them, with regards to, those top contenders in the MAC. Haven't really seen that on the men's or women's side yet for the most part. But a good win for Bowling Green, nevertheless, yesterday against Eastern Michigan, who prior, and actually currently still sits right ahead of them in the standings.
Yeah.
They had a bit of a scare with that one, though.
Yeah.
But, yeah.
Yeah, I do think, that's not a premier win. That's not a marquee win like we wanted it to be. But I do think Eastern played very well. I think Bowling Green did not play well, and yet they were still able to come up with a win, which I think a great team is going to do that.
Yeah.
That's a sign of a maybe not a great team, but a real, real good team, a very talented team. They can come out on a game where you're not playing well. I mean, they won by, officially 6?
Yeah, 6.
The game was not as close as... it was closer than 6 says. Definitely. Yeah. It was pretty much a one-score game. They pulled away a little bit at the end with some missed shots for Eastern. But most of the game, it was very 50-50, and BG was not playing well. So it was nice that at the end they were able to, pull it all together and get the W in the win column. That's a big one.
Yeah, it also took a while to get there just because... to get to the point of being a close game, because at the half, Bowling Green was up 10, and going into the half, they were playing, really well. I feel like in the second half, things fell apart. In 34 minutes, former Falcon Braylon Green really popped off 22 points.
He
was getting
game.
Downhill a lot. That's a career high for him, in either uniform. He really played at, his best. He went 9 for 11 from the field.
Yeah.
Made both of his three-pointers, made both of his free throw attempts, had 2 rebounds, 2 steals on top of that. So, he was...
Yeah, I was watching in person with my friends. We were really hoping that he didn't get the ball.
Yeah, I think
I think they were up by as much as 15 in the second half.
Yeah.
And sold it all the way down.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that really this win against Eastern Michigan, I think more so falls under the individual performances of Maier Wohl and Javonte Campbell having 25 and 18 points respectively. Javonte Campbell was a really big factor in that second half and kind of preventing Eastern Michigan from really thundering back. Because at one point in that game, Bowling Green had, I think it was a 21-point lead, and they allowed Eastern to go on an 11-0 run and close the gap to 10, and just a great performance by Campbell really is kind of what sold that in. He 18 total points. He was 7 for 12 from the field. He sunk his only 3-pointer. He had 2 steals, a couple rebounds. I think that was really just a huge factor in how Bowling Green was able to prevent Eastern Michigan from coming back and sort of upsetting them.
And I will say overall offensively, 5 players in double-figure scoring, not bad at all. You got 25 from Maier Wohl, who's scoring at a really, really high level. 8 for 15 from the field, 5 of 7 from 3, 4 out of his 5 free throws. Really, really nice stuff from him.
The clear answer is Maier Wohl for who is the best player. I think
absolutely.
Second, definitely Josiah Shackelford, because watching yesterday in person, the amount that, when there were times Sam Towns took fouls, Troy Glover took fouls, they were off the court. Josiah Shackelford as a guard, he's pretty large for a guard, but he was posting up a couple of times. He was all over the floor all the time. He's big, he's fast, he's quick, he can jump. I really like the way he played. I think he earned every one of those 13 points, 8 rebounds. I mean, he's dangerous, close to a double-double. Big deal for Troy Glover to get to 10 and 10.
Yeah.
But 13 and 8 is dangerously close for a guy that's coming off the bench.
And I think looking at, Glover and Shackelford, they did play not the same minutes, but Shackelford did have 28 minutes.
Yeah.
I think it's great to see him get those significant minutes. But it's really good to see those guys, both stepping up, getting some points on the interior, stuffing a lot of rebounds on the stat sheet, because there's been times in close games where, Sam Towns, will get in foul trouble. And when that happens and you don't have another guy stepping up in the paint or just like another big playing well, that's been oftentimes kind of the difference maker for the Falcons.
Yeah, true.
In a couple of their close losses. I mean, especially you look at those Akron-Kent games. I mean, significant near the end there. Sam Towns sniffing a little bit of foul trouble.
Yeah, and we watched Troy Glover go back to the locker room. It looked like he twisted his ankle at one point. He got kind of carried off back to the locker room. Came back out, played 35 total minutes, which is the most on the team. I didn't realize that. But he played the most minutes after that. He played very well all game, but it was kind of a scare. Camden Carroll had to come in. Aiden Goins came in early. He only had 3 minutes, didn't see the floor again. Camden Carroll only 2 minutes before the second half, and Glover came back out. So still the big depth is a big question mark for this team, a big scare with the potential injury there. Didn't end up being anything, but we'll see how that plays going forward with the big side.
Yeah. Kind of moving on from recapping the men's team, we're at the top of the hour here, so we're going to step away briefly for station identification, get a couple things around. When we come back, we're going to hear from WXUT's Dan Allen, who will be on their play-by-play call for the Battle of I-75 for men's basketball this Saturday. So don't go anywhere. We've got a lot more here to come yet on the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM.
You are listening to Falcon Media Sports Network coverage on WBGU 88.1 FM in Bowling Green, Ohio.
Ever wanted to hear what a BGSU coach or player says after a game? Head over to the BG Falcon Media YouTube channel to watch post-game press conferences for all BGSU home volleyball, soccer, football, hockey, and basketball games.
All right, we are live here in the second half of the Zig Zone on WBGU 88.1 FM, your home for everything going on in Falcon athletics. Once again, Holden Ruck from the Falcon Media Sports Network, joined by Ben Korak, Andrew Helkowski, and Trey Kennedy. And we've got here with us Dan Allen from WXUT. How you doing, Dan?
Get it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So just looking ahead, first of all, well, actually, let's look back before we look ahead. Toledo's basketball, what's been kind of the story of the season for you guys? Take us through it a little bit from your perspective.
Story of the season for Toledo has honestly been it's been a roller coaster of a ride. Honestly, as you know, a lot of players had left. Our whole roster practically had to be redone. Players like Javen Simmons and Bryce Ford left for different teams such as Ohio and Arizona State. So we basically had to rebuild in a sense, and Coach Todd Falchuk has done a really good job with that. Transfers like Austin Parks and Sean Craig, and also a great freshman class led by Leroy Blyden Jr. has been really good. It took some time to mesh, for the players to mesh, especially with the close games against South Alabama and Marshall, both at home. But after that, we kind of found a groove, and personified in Matt Clay has been the overall grit that this team has showed, being down double digits in multiple games. Point stands with Western Michigan and Ohio. They were down double digits in both those games, and they came back and won Ohio by an outstanding margin. So,
yeah,
this team showed a lot of fight, and I'm proud of it.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, in particular, one standout one, I don't know that signature loss is a phrase that people would say very often, but, just a 3-point margin with Kent State. Kent State always going to be one of the powers in the MAC, and certainly so this year as well. I mean, that's a Toledo team that's competing well with the best among the conference.
Yeah, Toledo from what I have seen, because granted, second year here, but I've been watching them for a decent bit of time. Toledo's always been competing up there competing at the top of the MAC for a good bit ever since I believe 2022, 2023. I think they've been up there. I mean, they won 4 straight regular season MACs, and they've been competing up there for a reason. What's to say they can't keep that tradition going?
For sure. Have you felt at all? I know, in our coverage of Bowling Green, our kind of analysis has been like the team's been a little bit streaky. They've played close. We had Bowling Green a 3-point loss to Kent State of their own, and then a 10-point loss at Akron that was much closer until some, kind of questionable decisions offensively, maybe in the waning minutes of that one. Kind of had a bit of a get-right game yesterday, an 85-79 result against Eastern Michigan. And I think it's kind of just the story of mid-major basketball, especially in the MAC. You're not going to be able to preserve that continuity from season to season for the most part. You're going to get guys to stay. Bowling Green was lucky enough to retain, a guy like Javante Campbell, who, could have probably been playing at some other stops. But have you seen that streakiness, or do you think this team has, kind of dialed in on their identity in MAC play here?
I feel like it's a mix of both. Honestly, they've been streaky in senses where they couldn't hit a shot to save their life. But there's also the times where they've combined as like a cohesive unit and have balled out. I mean, I personally went to the Michigan State game back in December, and granted, it's Michigan State. It's a Big Ten school. They were ranked number 9 of the nation at the time of the game. Obviously, you're gonna have that streakiness issue there, but they played a lot better in the second half. They showed the grit and tenacity that I like to see out of Toledo. I also look at games against Western Michigan, for example, that 84-79 win to kick off MAC play, with Blyden scoring 36. Then I also look at other contributors like Vanderjagt had in the games against Central Michigan and Northern Illinois had. Led the team in scoring in back-to-back games with 23 and 18. They rely on each other perfectly well. That's why all our starters are scoring over 10 points a game.
Yeah, that's something that I think until kind of recently, Bowling Green's Meyer Wall has really been kind of exploding in the scoring lately. And actually the Falcons against Eastern Michigan had 5 different players in double figures scoring. But kind of prior to that game, I would say, and maybe another good performance from Meyer Wall, it's been mostly, more than not, kind of a one-man leading the charge scoring for the Falcons. Definitely seems like a strength there for the Rockets, having a lot of guys who can get the rock in the basket consistently.
Yeah, it is a strength that I like. I mean, granted, all of our starting lineups, I'm going to go from top to bottom in terms of points per game. We have 17.5, 15.5, 13, 11, and 11. That's the points per game for all of our starters.
Right.
Yeah.
No,
go ahead.
Keep going.
No, go ahead.
All right. And I look at BG as well. You guys have some great scorers here. You have Javante Campbell, easily your best player, averaging 18, 5, and 5, with, I think, one of the top stats of the nation with 3.3 steals a game. I know he was up there leading the nation at one point in time in steals, which is great. Great for the MAC. You get the appearances. You get people looking at you that way. It's like, wow, what is this guy doing to get beat 3.3 steals a game? You also have 13, 12 and a half, and 11 from in your other double digits as well. It looks to be both a strength for you guys, and it's a strength for Toledo. The clash when they play each other this Saturday is actually going to be like, okay, how are we going to stop these? How are we going to stop these scores from getting to that season average?
Yeah, I was just about to ask you that question as well. In the limited amount of Toledo games I've watched this season, that's why you're here as the expert on Toledo men's basketball. It does seem like more of the weakness for this Toledo team is the defense, and especially because you have your starting 5. They've pretty much been the starting 5 for the entire season, it's obviously foul trouble can be a problem sometimes. I noticed Toledo does not foul too much. Bowling Green, a very good free throw shooting team. They shoot a lot of them as well. They draw fouls very well, especially Javante Campbell, his driving ability. Meyer Wall against Eastern drew a ton of fouls, especially on three-pointers. One, just how have you felt about defense this season for Toledo? How big of a concern is that for you, and just going into this Bowling Green game against a team that draws fouls? We're imagining a high-scoring affair. Do you feel the same?
I feel like just defense will always be a concern. Defense will always be a concern. Everything is going to be a concern when you're playing your crosstown rival. Essentially, I felt the same way back when I was in high school when I had to play Genoa or Port Clinton. Crosstown rivals, you're always going to have that worry. Is like, okay, what are we going to have to do, and what is going to be our problem, so that way we can prevent them from exploiting it. The defensive side is like it's mainly up and down. I love the defense that our guards have shown. Sonny Wilson and Leroy Blyden Jr. They have been really good at the defensive. I'm more concerned about post more than anything. Granted, our last game against Kent State, I had to look this up because I sadly could not be in Kent for that. But apparently, everybody was just getting fouled out of their mind. I'm pretty positive I had at one point, I think, Minor Strong, Wilson, Blyden. I know multiple people had 3 fouls, and we weren't even halfway through the second half. Now I don't know if that's because of the refs were calling everything out of the minor, or it was just that physical. I couldn't tell you. But if you get into that foul trouble, that's where you rely on your depth pieces. You got to rely on that. Like for us, it's a wing. For us in the post, it's Jalen Owinga. For us in the guards, it's Will James Jr. and Minor Strong. You got to rely on those guys to help you out there.
Yeah, definitely need to lean on the depth in those kind of situations. We were briefly recapping the last game for men's basketball before you called in here, and something we talked about that Bowling Green's kind of been able to work their way out of is there was a time when Sam Towns, kind of the primary option as a big man, gets into foul trouble, and suddenly you're just lacking his presence late game because you can't really afford him fouling out, and you don't have other guys stepping up as much in that department. And over at least the last game, that seems to be an area that Bowling Green has shored up a little bit, and I think something that they may be better suited to take advantage of, kind of their big man matchups than they were, maybe a week or a couple weeks ago. What do you think for Toledo to win this game? What do you think is going to be the biggest key for you guys, or who, if it's, a specific player?
For me personally, with the overall team key for this game, this has been a problem all year for Toledo. I will say this: you got to get your bench involved. Like, for crying out loud, you guys are probably dead last in the MAC in terms of bench points. But also the fact that your post defense has to be there. You have Sean Craig and Parks, not the biggest body people, but Sean Craig is, I think, more, from what I've seen, more physical than Austin Parks. I've personally seen Austin Parks play before he transferred to Toledo. I saw him play one time at Ohio State. I saw him all over the AAU team when he was with Ohio Buckets when he was in high school at St. Mary's. He's got to turn to that physicality. I want him to be more physical in the post, not to foul, but just be like a presence there. You're 6'10" for a reason. Use it. But also the fact that we just got to get to the team itself. Just got to get to their spots, and they just got to make their shot. That's what it is at the end of the day.
Then, by what you see from, you look at Bowling Green and so many players that have started and affected the games, and a lot of different players that have had a lot of good games. I think it's safe to say maybe a slightly better bench than Toledo has as a whole. Who do you look as maybe the biggest threat to Toledo men's basketball? You mentioned the post quite a bit. Is it going to be Sam Towns or Troy Glover in their posts, or is it going to be somebody from the outside looking in?
I honestly think that the two biggest threats for Toledo. Well, sadly, I haven't watched much of BG games. I mean, that's I'll ditto what you said about watching limited Toledo games. I've watched limited BG games, and that's what you guys do here. But I personally think that not only is Javante Campbell is going to be a threat. He's shooting 50% from the field and 78.5 free throw, while scoring 18-5, 5, and 3. That's always going to be a threat. And I personally want to see how either Wilson or Blyden handle him. But I also want to see like you said, Glover. I'm more concerned about Sam Towns here as well. 12.5 and 6, 12.5 points, 6 rebounds, with 2 assists and a steal to boot.
Yeah.
I haven't seen BG play much, but judging by his frame, 6'9", 200 pounds, he seems to be a very impressive post presence.
Yeah, and I think it's kind of dependent. It could kind of relate to, the version that you get, because Sam Towns, always an interior threat, but, it's also safe to say he's a little streaky, particularly scoring-wise, he can be streaky. I mean, in the early season against some softer competition, he went 8 games in a row with, or 7 games in a row with double-digit figures, including 27 at Kansas State, and a big upset win for the Falcons, kind of one of their signature wins of the year. A couple other double-figure games, 19 against Chicago State, 16 against Ohio in the MAC opener, 24 against Miami, probably his best game of the season, I would argue.
Yeah.
But then since then, 9 at UMass, 13 at Kent, 7 at Akron, 5 against Eastern Michigan. So it could kind of go either way. A little tendency to be kind of streaky, but I also feel like in the same vein, he might be due. And, obviously both teams have a game this week prior to Saturday's contest. But, if there's a game you're going to show up for, you best believe that it's going to be the rivalry one. I don't think, even though it's not the gridiron, I don't think that either coach lets their locker room take this one lightly.
Oh, either coach will not give it. It doesn't matter if they're playing football, basketball, baseball, or track. You're going to get if you're the coach of this team, you're going to have to get them locked in for that game, and also for that same way. Streakiness can be used for Toledo. So I look at Austin Park since you talk about Sam Towns. You said he's had his best overall game was against a big upset win against Kansas State, which I was actually shocked when I noticed that you guys beat Kansas State, because they're always in conversations with the top of the Big 12 in the big tournament. That's really good for them. But I look at Austin Parks. I've seen games where he dropped 27 points and 10 rebounds. I've seen 15 and 11. Just recently against Kent, he had 16, 3 and 4, but he also fouled out of that game. I look at games where Ohio, he had perfect shooting, 5 or 6 shooting. He had 13 and 5. He's had 13 and 5, 15, 10 and 5. 13 and 5. He's always been consistent in the rebounding department, but he's just got to get more scoring. Because I look at other games here against Oakland, he had 6. Against Michigan State, he had 4. Against Lords, he had 8. Western Michigan, he had 2. Well, granted, he got injured in that game, so I can't really say much about that.
Right.
He ended up getting a cut on the lip. If I'm pretty positive.
Not when you see every day.
No, not really, especially when it comes from a flying elbow.
Yeah, but go ahead.
If Toledo is able to come away with a win against Bowling Green, how do you think that would shape the rest of their season?
Oh, it'll give them I feel like it would give them a boost they would need to keep going. They have more momentum. I mean, you just came off of a thriller against Ohio, but not Ohio, Kent State, where you just came up short. Granted, you have a game against UMass first on Tuesday. But then if you get a big win against your crosstown rival, you then have to face teams like Akron, Ball State, and then a rematch with Kent State again.
Yeah, and then
Akron and Kent State are at the top of your conference, up there with Miami of Ohio.
Right. Yeah, and then if Toledo loses that game, conversely, how do you think that would it have a real big negative effect on the season, or do you think they would view that as a chip on their shoulder?
I think either way, whoever wins, it's going to be there's pros and cons to winning and losing. There's pros and cons here. The con, if you lose, is obviously you lost against your town rival. They're going to have the bragging rights until you guys meet up again. It's February 14th. But between that time, you have 4 games. You have 5-6 games against them. 4. Sorry, I can't speak.
You're good.
4 or 5 of them are conference games.
Yeah.
You have to use that. You have to go in with a chip on your shoulder. You're okay, no more mistakes, and you got to go.
Yeah, it's kind of a not so much back to the drawing board, but okay, we let this one get away. Can't do that again. Tones that for the rest of the season. It's it's not the worst thing for either team. You know what I mean? If you win, that's huge and you're fired up. And if you lose, I mean, that's all the motivation you could need. But I think it's also interesting because I would argue, barring a result this week, Because I don't know how Toledo versus UMass is going to go. I don't know how Bowling Green Western Michigan is going to go. But for either team, there's a strong case that it's their best win of the year, especially when you consider the rivalry. Both of the teams, their best win right now is arguably the Ohio win. I guess you could say the Kansas State game for Bowling Green, but it's not a MAC game. And to be honest, I don't care as much about it because it's not a MAC game. So, at least in terms of the conference, it'd be your best conference win for either team, arguably. I know Ohio's ahead of Bowling Green right now. That could, look different come Saturday, depending on what happens this week. So, all that to say, I think there's a lot of momentum to be gained by the winner of this one for sure.
Oh, 100%. And especially because nothing in the match should ever be taken lightly. Nothing in the match should. I'm looking over here at West Michigan because, granted, I was calling this game too. I saw Western Michigan was giving up a great fight, especially with Justice Williams. He debuted against Western Michigan because I think he was part of the gambling probe that happened this past season. Granted, 5 games, I think he's either all come off the bench or he started. He's averaging 19, about 20 points a game on 52% shooting. And this kid came out of nowhere and gave Toledo a fit. I think he scored like 30 points against Toledo, which was absolutely absurd.
Big time performance there.
Yeah, from that Western Michigan kid. UMass, I actually have not seen UMass play basketball at all because, granted, they've always been an independent.
Yeah.
Them joining the MAC is actually not that bad of a thing. It gives like a unique spin. It's more competition. It's like what happened with Marshall back in the 90s and 2000s.
Right. Yeah. And it was an interesting one for Bowling Green, too. To go to overtime and then literally just a 1-point win off of a late shot for the Falcons. It was a close margin. Yeah. I feel like from the common results that we've seen, I feel like we're kind of primed here for another classic. I don't want to get ahead of myself, but I
do want to ask what the odds are. You think that it's going to be a split? The last 2 years it's been split. The win. Or 2 years ago, it was a loss in Toledo for BG, or a win for Toledo at home, and then a win for BG at home. Last year, it was a win for BG on the road and a win for Toledo on the road. What are your predictions? What are the odds this year you think that it stays at a split? Because I would argue that these are the most even these two teams have been in the last 2 years.
I can see that, yes, and I honestly do think it will split. I do give Toledo that home advantage just because Savage Arena is one of if not the best stadium to play in the MAC. It's always loud. Everything's loud in that arena. The environment is great. The game against Ohio, for example, and also the games against Western Michigan too. It was loud in there.
Yeah, especially
it's always going to be the home court advantage and the crowd noise. That's always going to rattle a team. How you handle that adversity when you're either away or home is going to be different.
Yeah, it'll be interesting. I think what Ben mentioned is really interesting just because, both teams losing at home last year just showed you, the intensity of this rivalry, because it's on one hand, you've always got that road environment you have to play in, but, at the same time, there's not going to be a game all year that your fans can travel better for on the road than the one, 25 minutes up or down I-75, so... Yeah, environment, I'm sure, is going to be another classic, as always. I have no doubts on that one.
Oh, yeah, no, I plan on it to be an absolute classic. Whenever Toledo has played BG, especially in the more recent years, in any sport, it's always been a classic. It's always been a barn burner.
Yeah, and again, the common results are what is really cementing to me. I don't think, standings say one thing in MAC play, but the most games a team has played is 7. There's so many games left that Toledo being 5 spots ahead of Bowling Green right now doesn't give me any inclination that it's going to be a lopsided game or anything. You look at the conference record, the team's only separated by 1 win, 1 loss, go in a different way. So I'm just excited, to be honest. I think that's probably the biggest takeaway for most people is it should just be a really competitive game, probably as I think as competitive as you'll see this week for sure, at least.
Yeah, no. I agree. I agree. It's a MAC conference. Every game is going to be at least competitive for a good bit. It's always going to be exciting. I look at this. Toledo and BG only separated by a game in MAC conference standings. Granted, there's still a lot of conference left to play. You still have at least 11, maybe 12 games, considering the fact. And it's going to be a long road on who gets to go to Cleveland.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, both teams projecting right now to be in the picture, but, Northern Illinois, UMass not far behind. They're only one win lower than, the next three ahead of them, positions 6 through 8 right now in tournament positions. So, it really, still very wide open as to the landscape for Cleveland come tournament time. But if you had to give me your best estimation, what you think the final result for Saturday is going to be, and who the most valuable player in the game is going to be. By your estimation right now, still about a week out, what would you tell me?
Yeah, well, considering how both teams have fared against similar foes, you look at a game against Ohio. Ohio for BG's been decided by 10. Ohio for UT's was 16. Granted, it was a close game for the majority of that time. Then Toledo just got on a groove. I look at games against the top dog in the conference in Miami of Ohio, where both teams lost. It was a majority competitive game. You guys lost by 10. We lost by 14. Games like Kent State, 3-point losses respectively, 87-84 for us, 96-93 for you guys. It's always going to be a very competitive game. Everything's going to be competitive. It's a MAC conference. It's matching for a reason.
Gotta love the action.
Toledo will pull this out, but it's going to be closer than they think, closer than everybody thinks. In my opinion, I think it's going to be a 3-point game.
3-point game. That's for calling, huh?
I'm going to go 79-76 Toledo.
79-76 Toledo. Pretty decent scoring affair here, huh?
Yeah, pretty decent. Both teams are going to get out of the gate. I'd have to assume. It's BGUT, but you also got to think like there's going to be moments where both offenses will stall at some point and the defenses will shine. You said the streakiness will occur. Both teams are going to hit a stone wall.
Right. It's kind of a question, you look at recent games especially, which version of either team you're going to get. I'm inclined to think we're going to see the better version of both teams. My personal thinking, just because of the way the depth is played, I could see the result going anyway. I think Bowling Green's big men are going to make a difference in a way that the depth beyond Sam Towns hasn't made at the same time as Towns in a lot of their bigger games this year. So I see it being a little closer even. I could see it going like 2 or 1 points. My gut is saying like Bowling Green 68, Toledo 66. I think they're going to split again. And I think they're going to take it on the road again. That's my gut call right now. Fellows in the studio with me, do you guys have any thoughts? What do you think?
I do think it is going to be more high scoring. I do also think that you guys are right. It's going to be within 3 points. I honestly I don't know who it could be. I think I would give the edge in offense to Toledo. I would definitely get the edge in defense to Bowling Green. If they're able to stay out of foul trouble, will be a big piece. This is the great part that we get to wait and see. I'd say that the game's going to be in the upper 70s probably. So I think Dan's right with that.
My question is, with Bowling Green and Toledo both being in the top 3 in turnover margin in the MAC, will that be a deciding factor down the stretch, I should say, in this game? What are you thinking?
I honestly think it will be. Turnovers can lead to a series of momentum swings. I saw it firsthand against Ohio, where Ohio just couldn't stop turning the ball over, and Toledo got out to a massive lead in the second half. That all in all sealed the game for Toledo. But then also I've seen Toledo keep missing possessions and keep turning over the ball, and that led to a bigger hole. Keep digging themselves into a hole. I think the turnovers will be a big factor. You just gotta live it. You just gotta make the easy play. You gotta make the smart play. Take the risks, sure, but those risks you can fall on a double-edged sword.
Right, for sure.
Yeah, and then for me, really, I kind of agree with what Holden had to say. I think it'll be kind of like in the mid-60s probably. For me, I'd say 65, 62 Bowling Green. I think, no way that this isn't a one-score game, but I think these these team stars, like Javonte Campbell and Meyer Wolf for Bowling Green, and then of course Sonny Wilson and Leroy Blyden Jr. for Toledo. I think all four of those guys are going to be huge factors on this game next week.
Oh, yeah, I agree with that. Blyden finally got out of a shooting slump against Ohio. He was shooting below 30%, but then he popped off for about 50% and 24 points. Sonny Wilson scored 25 against Ohio. Sonny Wilson is the guy who will comfortably score 20 points without even breaking a sweat.
And that's just that kind of scoring threat's dangerous.
Craig or Blyden is good.
Yeah. Anything else you want to add looking ahead at this one as we kind of wrap up the segment here, Dan?
It's not too really forward to look at, except for looking at the actual product on January 24th. There's nothing really much to look at. You can compare the teams by paper, and you can guess who has the advantage or not, but nothing will be set sure until the teams meet up face to face.
Absolutely, definitely one where we can speculate all we want as the quote unquote experts, but we will have to just wait and see until that one comes around. Anything you want to plug from you guys at WXUT while you're here?
The Sports Hour is always a good one on Tuesday mornings with Anthony Krushka. It's always a good one. My personal show, this is a shameless plug for myself, but I have a show Tuesday nights from 9 to 11 about professional wrestling. It's called Running the Ropes. That's Tuesdays from 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. And there's so much more to think of. We have Running Our Mouths, which is a morning talk show on Wednesday mornings. They talk everything about sports and baseball and football and whatnot. You have so many different shows. It's great from both sides, honestly.
Gotta love it. We here at WBGU, and in particular Falcon Media and Falcon Media Sports Network, always advocates for our own as well as our other peers in student media. So once again, Dan Allen from WXUT. Dan, thanks for joining us today. Great to have you, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Yeah, have a good one.
You too.
Great to have Dan join us there for that segment. Hopefully something we'll be able to do a little bit more, kind of engage with more student media down the line with this show. Really nice opportunity to cross over with people. You can only watch so much of the teams that Bowling Green's going to go against. Definitely a great perspective to have from the beats on the other side. With that's going to wrap up both basketballs for today. The primary thing we have remaining is just a little bit more football portal talk in this last segment of the show here. Most notably, a couple of key additions for the future for Bowling Green. First of all, the highest rated recruit in program history for Bowling Green.
Freshman recruit,
yes, an important caveat there, thank you.
Yes.
Midtown High School tight end Kentrell White committed to Bowling Green last Tuesday afternoon. Member of the class of 26, a 3-star recruit, the highest rated recruit in program history, which was previously held by quarterback James Morgan. Slightly lower rated in those nitpicky decimals on 24/7 Sports. Previously an Auburn commit, Kentrell White, decommitted in December due to their coaching change. The number 17 ranked athlete in the country in his class on Rivals, number 30 tight end in the country in his class by 24/7 Sports. Had a lot of other offers: Virginia Tech, Kansas State, Pittsburgh, Vanderbilt, Arkansas State, to name a few. Big time recruit. Again, anytime you're going to get the highest rated recruit in program history, I think that's big, but also kind of continuing on with a little bit of the tight end pipeline. You've got a couple guys who've gotten some NFL play. Christian Sims, Quentin Morris, Harold Vannon, Jacob Harris recently transferred to Wisconsin, but had a nice year himself. Jaron Johnson, solid tight end here too. Another guy adding to the kind of the MAC tight end tree here. Bowling Green, kind of the TEU in the MAC, I would say. Big time recruit, and I think a really critical time to pull in a good recruit for this team that's been pretty ravaged otherwise in the portal.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Here's the main thing that I take from this, and I don't take anything. I do take a lot from him as a tight end because he's very highly rated. A tight end being the highest rated recruit in the history of your program, or at least recorded history of the program, that's a big tell of how good he is. And I think the bust factor on tight ends is very low. I feel like it's more or less a sure thing. I also don't think with the offers that he had, which According to 24/7 Sports, Bowling Green, Bowling Green, Virginia Tech, Auburn, Kansas State, Pittsburgh, all of those Power 4 teams besides Bowling Green. I don't think he chooses a mid-major school unless he believes in who's passing to him.
Yeah.
No,
And
I think
so.
you're
I
right.
think that Eddie George and whoever is recruiting Kentrell White to Bowling Green had to be able to bring a decent quarterback name to him. And the main thing I look at, one, is the transfer that they just brought in that was a 4-star out of high school, and a 3-star now is a transfer, Austin Novosad
yeah.
from Oregon, obviously leaving because Oregon's got a great quarterback situation right now. But also the recruit, Jaron Mock, who's the third highest recruit in the history of, I think fourth highest recruit in the history of Bowling Green football. So, I mean, you have two names there, one from Oregon who was in the college football playoff. This is a guy that watched from the sideline the college football playoff. And then you have one of the better freshman recruits to mid-majors as a quarterback. So I think it's a good sign. If not for that reason, that the quarterback play might be good.
Yeah,
because you have a guy that's going to be catching balls that's an understanding of the situation that he's coming into. He wouldn't come in if he was, not going to get targeted.
Yeah, I think this is a great pickup for the program. And honestly, both of those guys, Kentrell White, being the highest recruited high schooler for Bowling Green in their program's history. I think that really says a lot for how Eddie George has been hitting, not only just, the high school recruiting trail, but the transfer portal as well, bringing in Austin Novosad. I think that's really how you want to start when you're, kind of building up a program who's kind of been down a little bit in, recent memories, just, barely scrape it together, 7-win, 8-win seasons. I think, and obviously coming off a bit of a rough showing, going 4-8, having a bit of an offense that was lacking. I think, these two critical pieces could really kind of give Bowling Green that shot of adrenaline when it comes to just moving the ball down the field. And, when it's third down, are we gonna check the ball down, or are we gonna, let our new quarterback who, played for Oregon, or are we gonna let him, unleash it down the field? I think this just opens up a lot more opportunities for them offensively, especially.
I also think that this team was lacking a playmaker. Yes, you had Cameron Petaway. He's going to be gone. And a lot of times when you had those plays where you got to have it, you would give it to him. Well, he runs.
Mm-hmm.
He can catch, yes, but they lack that person down the field. And the tight end addition's great. Also having the quarterback room be really awesome too. Having that competition is really great because heading into the season, it was Drew Pine was the guy, and then we saw what we had in him. Then after that, Lucian Anderson coming in a little bit.
That might be generous.
Yeah, a bit. Just trying to be nice to him.
So the competition wasn't there. You have these quarterbacks now that are going to be fighting for their jobs in a program that has been lacking that quarterback position for a while.
Yeah, I think this is the first year in a while that Bowling Green hasn't had a playmaker receiving the ball, because last season we had they had Harold Fannin Jr. Now he's rookie in the NFL. The season before that they had Odu Hilaire, and they had Fannin. So I think they've been lacking exactly what you said.
Those receiving targets.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I mean this most recent season in particular, your first season post life without Harold Fannin, and you've got Jacob Harrison running backs doing the majority of the like red zone targets, and I mean a lot of the receiving in general.
Yeah, and then when Harris decides to transfer out and go to Wisconsin, then who then do you look for? You've got to look for somebody else. You've got to start making recruiting movements of your own. You can't just be waiting for someone who's been sitting down the depth chart to make a pull.
And I think like a top tight end recruit is not a bad thing too, because it seems in line with, if we presume we're going to see some amount of continuity from this season to next in terms of offensive identity, which hopefully just improves also. But in the event that that's going to be the case, you're going to see a lot of contributions from the tight ends. I mean, we saw a lot of games last season where wide receivers were, pretty limited factors, save for maybe some of the blocking game.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I understand that Eddie George wants to be, a run-first team, have a bunch of heavy bodies out there on the field, but that only works if you're able to move the ball downfield through the air, because if you can throw it, they're just going to sit 7-8 guys in the box and cover up the run all day, and there's nothing you can do about it.
Yeah, I think for a while there, maybe because Tyler Kavlitz's opinion piece kind of convinced me of it. I was kind of nervous about the transfer
That's
portal.
That's a rarity, by the way.
I know.
Ben Korak
but
agreed
now,
with Tyler. Shout out.
now I've flipped away. I'm pretty much solved into a believer now of what he's doing, because I mean, you can't argue with now Eddie George's recruits being 1, 3, and 4 on your all-time leaderboard. I mean, something Scott Loeffler wasn't able to do at his time here, and he's got 3 at the top. Not to mention, I feel good about Austin Novosad. I think last year we had something to go off of with Drew Pine, and that was some time at other Power 4 universities, and it took a step down. Novosad is behind a great quarterback, and Oregon's been able to maybe not develop great quarterbacks, but to have them in a certain way, and they played very well there.
Don't forget
the
Bo
quarterbacks
Nix.
that they've brought in the last, 6 years have, been very solid
yes,
guys. Dylan Gabriel was very solid. Bo Nix was very solid when he was there. Justin Herbert
Dante
was good
Moore.
when he was there. Dante Moore has been very good.
And there's a reason Dylan Raiola's, he says he's willing to go sit there behind Dante Moore for another year just to be in the room that Austin Novosad was in a couple of weeks ago. So I do feel good about that. I feel good about the people that are going to be catching the balls. And I think everybody might just be getting a little bit, a lot of the playmakers for the Falcons this year were transfers from last year that George pulled late in the portal. So, I mean, you I believe still have time left. I don't know the exact numbers on when the portal closes and when time is up, but it's already a solid class of freshmen combined with transfers. I'm really looking forward to it. I'm feeling good about where they're at right now.
I think the portal is closed by now, actually. I think it closed on the 16th, I want to say.
Did it?
I think so, yeah, because it was open from the 2nd, and I think they had it on for 2 weeks.
We'll take your word on that until
I don't know the numbers, frankly.
But yeah, I think Ben's dead on.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I think this team was excited heading into this season, obviously with Eddie George becoming the coach.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of our excitement overshadowed a lot of the weaknesses and low parts about the offense and defense combined. I think getting this whole transfer portal and freshman class is going to help Eddie George ultimately build a program he wants to and allow this Bowling Green team to be more competitive in the MAC play, unlike we saw last year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, last year, we did a piece of content, and one of the topics we discussed on it was, expectations going into Coach George's first year. Lucas and Tyler and Ben and I, the average answer was 4 or 5-ish wins, maybe 6 if we're optimistic, which felt realistic for a little bit this past season.
Yeah.
Didn't get there.
Again, like that
shouldn't
number
have been
went
the
up immediately after the
Right.
first. After the first 5 games, that number went up in all of our heads.
Yeah, absolutely. And
So
so
and
yeah,
then
I
it
don't
fell down
think
at the
that.
end.
I think this class incoming is kind of putting you back on the trajectory that this team should be on. It's not going to happen overnight. This year, I'm not saying they're going to contend this year, but I think you're trending in the right direction. I think you're looking. They're going to improve. They're not just going to sit complacently. And, it's not what Coach George has done. It's not what he did at Tennessee State. I don't see that happening here.
You also just have to look at what Eddie George was left with. It wasn't necessarily a great freshman class. I don't believe the last one that Loeffler had recruited. And no transfers at all. Eddie only got the late portal, and that was it. So you have to understand the situation he was left with. He did, I think, a not a great job, but a fine job with what he had and last year. And when you don't have a quarterback at all, it's pretty tough to win games, and that was proved last year. He went out and got Jaron Mock, who I think he might be a long-term kind of guy, like maybe a project kind of thing, but that's also why you brought in Austin Novosad to kind of maybe be the starter on game number 1. I don't know. I could see either one of them, and I'd be happy with either one of them. It's a good situation to be in.
But Novosad has 2 years of eligibility left, too. So, you could conceivably have him for a hot minute, especially if it looks as though he's going to be the guy. And, I think I could be mistaken on this. I don't see a guy coming from a Power 4 stop, especially like one of the more elite ones like Oregon. I don't see him coming down to the MAC and then going back up, or like leaving. I have the feeling
unless he tears it up this year and then just
if he's like
goes
offensive
back.
player of the year, then he may move again.
Because you could make the argument he was stuck behind Dante Moore.
Yeah, I mean we have no idea.
So
we have no idea.
We didn't
Either
know.
way, we
what
wouldn't
he
be
can do yet,
complaining
but-
about him being offensive player of the year.
No,
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 certainly
no.
not.
I'd be
It's-
happy with that.
It's the kind of pedigree that, I mean, Drew Pine, I want to say was the SEC freshman, or not Drew Pine, Connor Bazelak was, I think, the SEC freshman of the year when he was with Mizzou, briefly stopped at Indiana, didn't really play significantly, ended up here, and, we had decent expectations, and he was okay, he was all right. He was streaky, good at times, bad at times. Drew Pine had the pedigree, he was on a good Notre Dame team.
Bazelak was a little more
similar
consistent.
stops.
But
Yeah, just looking at what was going on with Novosad coming out of high school in 2021 was that time offered by Colorado. Believe that was the first season of Deion Sanders, offering him out of high school for a freshman recruiting class. Kansas, Texas A&M, Nevada and Louisiana Tech also, Baylor, TCU, Washington State, Stanford, Ohio State. He received an offer and made a visit to Ohio State.
Yeah, I mean, you've got
Notre Dame.
You've got programs like Notre Dame, Ohio State, Oregon. I mean, that's
And Texas A&M.
And Texas A&M. That's a better slate of offers than either of those last two guys that we've.
I mean, when he was being recruited, 2022, I think was that time.
TCU
and
was
he
good
enrolled
time
at
too,
Oregon
still.
in January of 2023. Oregon and Ohio State were the two top teams in the Big Ten at the time, and he was being recruited by both of them.
Yeah, I mean, that was,
Granted, it's been 2 years, and granted, he hasn't played in 2 years. He's got like 12 completions or something, but I mean, you can't really argue with that. He was, 94 and a 4-star coming out of high school.
Yeah.
That doesn't just really go away, and if it does, that's a generational loss.
And even TCU at that time, 22, 23 was when they made. I mean, they got kind of thumped, but that's when they made a natty run.
Around there, yeah, they were.
Yeah.
And
So I mean,
up
that's
their
no
program.
slouch of an offer either. So I mean, yeah, I think the pedigree of pedigree of programs looking at this guy, I think you really might have something here. If not even, your answer at the position, just good competition to have in the room. I mean, I see no reason that it. We're not going to sound the Bowling Green's back, baby. It's 2013 and 2015 again alarm just yet. But I think, only positives in the last week of recruiting.
With the additions that they've made, I feel like they can at least stack 2-3 more wins that they should have probably had in close games last season.
yeah, I think this team could easily, make a bowl game if not win one.
Yeah, I think the program is definitely itching for that. I mean, you look at
For sure.
I know we don't have the MAC schedule yet, but there will be some really good out-of-conference tests during the 4 weeks of non-conference next season.
The schedule, when it comes out, is going to be a big talking point, I think, for us, especially because this year I felt like it was on the easier side.
Yeah.
And maybe that was some because the MAC and like certain teams that were good 2 years ago weren't good this year and could be good again next year. Like, it could be a weird thing with the talent level, but I do feel like it was on the easier side this year.
Yeah.
Mainly because you did not play. They didn't play Miami of Ohio, right? And they didn't play Western Michigan.
No.
So those are the two top 3 teams. Two of the top 3 teams
The
right
only
there.
top
And the
team
one that
you
won the
played is
Mid-American
Ohio,
Conference
which
Championship.
was the previous champ, yeah.
Yeah. And you played Ohio, got thumped by Ohio.
Yeah, I mean, you've got your usual FCS Tarleton State to open the season September 5th. After that, you've got Nebraska in Lincoln. You've got Iowa State in Ames the week after that. And then you've got South Florida. I think that South Florida game is going to be a good one in particular.
Home, too.
At home. I like having that one at home. I think, like, having one of those good teams, usually around homecoming time.
It's probably going to be homecoming if
I had to guess.
maybe
I
the
would
next
place-
week, but it's odd that they would do that in MAC play.
But that's their 4th game, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
That'll probably be their homecoming one.
I
then.
would place my bet there, too.
That's the only way I could see USF coming to Bowling Green, as if they had to make the argument that it's
Like, it's our homecoming game, so you got to come out here.
Yeah, I mean...
And they are going there in a few years, but I would imagine. I think 4th game of the season the last 2 years has been homecoming. I could be incorrect on that.
Regardless, I mean, exciting non-conference slate. You've got teams that, throw shots in their conferences, but no, I mean, Iowa State and Nebraska, no huge powers in the Power Four, but still, kind of
Formidable.
like last year. You look at like Cincinnati and Louisville. I see similar or maybe even better competition against Nebraska and Iowa State. I think those two teams might be a little bit better than your non-conference in Eddie's first year. And then South Florida, a team that's going to compete. Plenty of guys. I think it was Reese Patricas who mentioned, but kind of like a Florida and even some of South Florida connection. Like there's been a lot of guys in and out of the program
That is true.
in the last few years in that area, including Teron Keith, staying out here and ended up playing at South Florida. Just a lot of kind of connections there. I think that's going to be a really, really good one and a really good litmus test for how they can fare for MAC play. The biggest thing is we got to see the schedule. The only transfer portal windows that can open still is outgoing players from the two remaining playoff teams, or I think there's a little bit of extended window for the teams that just lost last weekend, and then any other teams that have a
head coaching changes,
departure.
Yeah.
So outside of those,
which is a fair bit of teams.
Yes. So you've got some question marks still, certainly, from some of the coaching vacancies. Some guys still floating around. We may see some more trickle in. But, you're not in a bad place at all, I don't think. It's just, not going to be easy for them either. Any other thoughts on that? Anything remaining that you got to get off your chest about it?
No, I think everything's pretty much been covered.
All right, last thing for you. We're going to go out of the realm of Bowling Green because it is, of course, playoff season, and there's some NFL scores we could look at. The Seahawks put BTA, as they say, against the 49ers.
Thumped them.
We're not going to talk about that because there's, we haven't even got to conference championships yet. There's still more time. I want to talk about the Natty tomorrow night. Indiana Hoosiers, Miami Hurricanes. Who are we taking and why?
Indiana, all day, every day. Indiana is, I think they're unstoppable. I don't think there's any team in the country that can be able to compete with what Indiana is doing. I think Kurt Cignetti is easily, the best coach this season. If you've got, the Heisman winner, Fernando Mendoza, throwing the ball, you've got Elijah Surratt, Omar Cooper on the outside, you've got Roman Hemby taking up, chewing up yards on the ground. I think that offense is fantastic. But conversely, Miami has a really good defensive line. Ruben Bain being the leader of those front four, and I think I think they're going to have struggles running the ball, and I think they're going to have a little bit of a hard time in pass protection. But I just don't see Miami being able to score much on them.
Trey?
I second that. I think Indiana is going to win this game, but this is going to be a defense that they're going to have a creative mindset in attacking against Miami, because we saw that with Ohio State. Ohio State had fits all game long, and if Miami is going to be creative, they're going to have that creative design, creative protection, and front as they attack the opposing Indiana Hoosiers offense.
Ben?
I do think it's more of a chance that Miami puts up a solid fight than anybody's really thinking. I think it's all going to come down to Mendoza for Indiana and how well he plays, because if he just plays solid or better, then they'll win.
Yeah.
The only way that they do not win is if he plays poorly. I do think Miami punches above its weight class. I think there's a reason they beat Ohio State. Ohio State had tough games to Indiana, so we can do the chain right there. But I do think there's a better chance for Miami. That being said, it's Indiana for me, at least right now, until I see Mendoza start to lose it a little bit, which I don't think there's any sign that he will.
No.
Whoever wins the turnover battle. Sorry, go ahead.
True. Also, I will say, if I saw this the other day, and I think it's true, if you switched out the Indiana logo for the LSU logo, I think this team would be widely considered definitely more impressive than the 2019 LSU team.
Yeah, that was the.
And if not more impressive, then maybe even better. This might be one of the best college football teams of all time.
Yeah, I think
also the only one that could go 16-0.
Yeah, they are as good. At least they are as good as that 19 LSU.
That'd be a good game if you put them against each other.
Oh man, that'd be a great one.
Lot of strong opinions there. I think based on pure talent, in particular on the lines, I think that Miami.
I love you for saying that.
Is going to. I think they outmatch Indiana on the lines. my inclination, I low-key, I think I'm rooting for Indiana, low-key.
Yeah.
But I think Miami's going to outmatch them on the lines. The only difference maker, if Indiana wins, it's going to be because I do think Kurt Cignetti is a better coach than Mario Cristobal. There were some times where the Ohio State game nearly got away from Miami late, and
True.
I mean they could have iced it much sooner and much more definitively than they did. And I mean they let Ohio State hang around until the end. If you watch that whole game, I think if Mario Cristobal coaches as good as he ever has, that Miami's going to win.
That's fair.
But the stipulation is it relies completely on
You
him
also,
to do so.
as somebody that's not a Miami fan that has watched almost every single Miami game this year, because one of my roommates loves Miami, so we watch the U all the time.
Oh yeah.
They take so many dumb penalties that if they continue to take dumb penalties, they cannot win. But if Cristobal is able to get his guys settled down and they don't take stupid penalties, like I'm talking about like hitting after the whistle and
absolutely.
like the stupid
Taking
ones,
the
not
helmet off,
gameplay,
right?
holding,
Giving
whatever.
it
Yeah, exactly.
Just like letting
Like,
tempers flare and stuff.
It's that kind of thing that is it's unforgivable normally, and it's unforgivable in the national championship.
I think the U, just kind of because of the brand, and some expectations, the fan base. I think the talent is more there. I think Indiana's better coached, and I think the talent may win this time. As long as Mario Cristobal coaches well. I mean, we've seen some questionable games. I don't know if you remember that game a few years ago where they mathematically could have run the ball out basically.
Yeah,
down
they
to
fumbled
15.
instead.
They fumbled it and lost the
Yeah,
game.
that was bad.
That was what the Georgia Tech, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, I remember that. They should have kneeled it out, and instead
that
they
was
ran a
brutal
play.
stuff.
And I mean, that's something as a head coach. It's
No,
just
that's brutal.
unforgivable.
You
But-
can't be doing that.
If they lose by a score, 2 scores, especially by a score, the entire game is going to come down to one penalty. And I almost guarantee you that it'll come down to one situation where he took a bad penalty that leads to a score on a 4th down or something, and the game will end like that.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. That's going to do it for us here from the Zig Zone. Looking ahead real quick just to the schedule this week. Men's basketball plays in Kalamazoo Tuesday. We'll have the call of that on Falcon Radio. Women's basketball will be on WBGU against Ohio from the Stroh Center on Wednesday at 7 p.m. Hockey this weekend will play on Friday and Saturday at 8:07 p.m. and 7:07 p.m., and that will be on WBGU 88.1 FM as well. And then men's basketball will be on Falcon Radio at 5 p.m. on Saturday, also on Falcon Radio. As always, you can check out bgfalconmedia.com to keep up with all of our content. BG Falcon Media on YouTube, at BG_FMSN on Twitter X, and BG Falcon Media wherever else you get your sports news. That's going to do it for us here on the Zig Zone. For Trey Kennedy, Andrew Helkowski, and Ben Korek, have a good night, and I Ziggy.